Welcome back to Nzone Focus. What is it that encourages a person to rise above their circumstances and to give back, to help people who are still in that situation discover their potential for a better life? Well, our next guest says God is the one who's given her the strength and the resources to help those around her. Praise Nalubwama was like many children in Uganda, growing up in poverty with little or no family support. But from a young age, she knew she needed to not only look after herself, but to also help even younger children who needed someone to care for them. Praise is now in her 20s and has been providing shelter for children since her early teens. She now also has a strong connection to this country, and while she was here on a visit earlier this year, shared her story with Mania Clarke.
Kia ora, Praise, no mai haere mai ki Aotearoa. Welcome to New Zealand and welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Are there many children in your country that need care? What's happened in their lives?
There are so many children in my country who need care because of what has been real happening, most so to do with AIDS, which has killed so many parents, and then leaving the young children without anybody to take care of. So you find these children that they really need care. And also, despite that, we had also the war in the northern part of Uganda, who killed many people, and so many people ran and came on the streets. So we find so many kids in Uganda were born on the streets. The grandparents cannot really take good care of it. Okay, they can't because they are now weakening in age and they can't work hard for the children. So the children end up working by themselves to find what to eat and how to go about life. I did that for several years. Yeah.
It's amazing. So you would know what it's like to have no one protect you. Your father had been killed. Are there lots of dangers for children, and especially children with no parents in your country?
Sure, there are. Because like when I was staying with my grandmother, we had 24 other cousins of ours, and then all of them, their parents had died, and so of AIDS. And so because we are so many, we would go on the street, get what to eat, and then the danger is this way. Because we would fight for food from the garbage pit with these other children from the street, and then on the same pit, the dogs would come, the wild dogs would come to eat on this same pit. So many things would happen. And one time I will never forget, one incident happened that on this rubbish pit they had put poison in it. So when we were like fighting for this food between us and the dogs, then afterwards when we came back to the rubbish pit, we found that the 4 dogs had died, and which means they ate poison. And so we survived, and from there I just knew that God loved us. So children are not protected in my case, if we had eaten poison, and some other kids are raped on the street just because they are vulnerable of the circumstance. Yeah.
By the time you were 18, you had 8 children living with you. Tell us about that.
At 14 years, my grandmother died, so someone took me in, and this person never wanted anything to do with street children. So like I would feed this boy in the back door, in the window in the back of our house. So every time I would tell him to come behind the window, and then I would give him my food, because it was the only way to keep him survive, because no one wanted him. And because I cared so much for him, that's why I would feed him so that they cannot like get mad on me. So when I was feeding them, many of them began following him, and whenever they could see me coming from school, they would go behind where I was staying in somebody's house, and then they would go behind the window and could feed them from there. But I did that for 2 years, and they were mad on me. I mean, they came to know that I was feeding some children behind the door, and that was the end of my stay in that place. So I had to move on with life and with these all street children, because I really loved them, because they were exactly like the way how I was. when I was growing up, and the stories they had were real very sad stories, and I really felt bad. So I had to move on with these children to find somewhere. So yeah, that's how life has been, and we kept on moving from place to place, because taking care of them was really not very simple. Yeah, it was really very hard. So we kept on moving from place to place with them, because I really loved them.
Where did you stay when you were going from place to place?
We would rent, because like I do some church music, so I do some gospel music. So at times I would sing in my church, in some churches. So if somebody blesses me, I would use the money to rent a place. But at times the money that I get would rent from 1 month or 2 months. So if the money is finished, then we would just move on, because the landlord will need back the house. So that's how life was. That's why it's the reason why we kept on moving, so that the money we had was, actually I didn't have any source of income apart from singing, and you never know whether that day they will give you some money or not. And on top of that, I had to feed them, and I had to send them to school, and I also was still in school, so I would pay for my school fees, pay for their school fees, and then also everything. Yeah.
Did these children have a faith like yours that you were caring for?
Actually, like when I got these children from the street, I would share with them about Jesus, and actually they end up loving Jesus more and more. And the more they loved Jesus, the more their faith grew up. And so yeah, they had great faith, because we really lived by faith many times. Actually, up to now, we are still living by faith. Yeah.
But what's happened to the children, those 8 children now?
Oh yeah. Most of them are becoming up to be great men. They're real handsome and powerful children, young men in ministry. Actually, my first child I got when I was 15 is now is turning 21 and is wanting to be a pastor.
Amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It must make you very proud.
I'm so proud. It's so, like when we walk together and then he calls me mommy, everyone wonder how about that. You know, they don't think that somebody who is like me can be having a grown-up son, but I do. He's a huge and tall guy, handsome.
Looking down at you, calling you mum.
He just looks down over me.
What did other people in the communities that you stayed in, how did they view you and what you were doing with these children?
Actually, most people were calling me crazy. You know, they said I was crazy, I was running mad, you know. They thought I didn't have any future. I was a young girl. Why should I go on with caring about these orphaned children? And so they were so much worried. And my mother too was much worried about the way how my life was going, of caring, and yet I also didn't have but caring for others. So people never understood me, but I had a secret between me and God. Yeah.
Have there been times where things were so hard that you felt that you wanted to give up and you couldn't help the children anymore?
Of course, yes. Time came when it was real very, very hard. And as young people grow up, there is a stage that they eat very, very much, that like feeding them was real very hard for me. And these are the boys who never wanted anymore to go back to the street. They really had built their faith in God and they trusted in God. So they really wanted to do away with their street life, but taking care of them was very hard. So as we prayed, somehow somebody brought food. That was the most amazing story that I can ever tell. Somebody that we've never known up to today brought in some food and gave the children. So it all turned my thinking round, and from that day I know that our God is our provider. Yeah, but always things have not been easy in many different ways. Yeah.
Now Now, I understand that last year you started a school for the children.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do that?
I began a school just because we are staying in the city, in Kampala. Kampala is the capital of Uganda. But time came when we couldn't survive in cities. Still, life is quite expensive. So we had to move on in the village, bush area, like it is a jungle. We call it a jungle home. So with the little money I had 2,000 New Zealand dollars. So I had faith to build a house. So we went clear down the bush and cut down the trees with the children, and then we constructed the house with the help of some other friends on the village. So we came up with this house by faith, but it somehow didn't finish because I'd never built any house. So I thought maybe this money was enough, but actually it wasn't. So, but somehow after finishing the house, though up to now it is not really finished, but at least we can stay in there. This village didn't have people. This village didn't have any school. And I had many children who needed to go to school. They can do better when they are educated than being illiterate, so they can know how to handle their lives and avoid what killed their parents when they were still young. So, yeah, and to bring up good leaders that can help our nation. Yeah.
Shall we go?
And now we have 135 children in this school. Yeah.
And when you go back to your home country of Uganda, what do you hope to do with your ministry?
What I hope to do with the ministry is that having grown up as an orphan, I've really come to know that it is really very hard, or there is no any orphan that wants to be called an orphan. You know, there is no any child, because it affected me very, very much. I never wanted to hear anybody calling me an orphan, because it was really very hard in my life. And every time I would cry seeing children with parents. So what I really want to see is not an orphanage. I really want to see homes whereby there is a parent, a mother and a father figure that can really take care, and the children can learn from as parents rather than being in an orphanage. And because I really want to see children having a belonging, yeah. So I really want to see this coming out. It is really needed. Yeah.
Praise ngā mihi ki a koe. Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Welcome.
And God
Thank
bless.
you very much. Yeah.
Mania Clarke was talking there with Praise Nalubwama from Uganda about her passion for looking after street children. If you'd like to add your support to her ministry, you can do that through Orphans Aid International. For that, you go to www.orphansaidinternational, all one word, .org, and click through to Project One Uganda. That's Project One Uganda. And don't forget to clearly mark your donation to go to Praise in Uganda.